Welcome to the Engage Your Students with ELA presentation today, breakout session. My name is Shanoa Mahar, and I am the 2021 ESD 123 Regional Teacher of the Year. And my co-host is
Melissa Charette, and I'm the ESD 113 2018 Regional Teacher of the Year. I'm from Olympia, Washington, and I teach in the Olympia School District.
And we will be your hosts for this session today. Assisting this session is also the amazing Stephanie, and she will be providing tech support and monitoring the chat for us today. We would like to introduce to you today your presenter for this session, the amazing and incredible Miss Bambi Pescasio. Bambi is a 5th grade teacher and Google certified trainer from the Canyon View Elementary in Kennewick School District, Kennewick, Washington. Bambi uses her amazing depth of knowledge to enhance and engage her students in her classroom with her innovative use of technology. She is here to share that with you today. I give to you Bambi Pescasio.
Thank you so much, Shanoa. Hi guys, thanks for giving me this opportunity. It really is an honor to be here today. First, I just wanted to start by saying 2 years ago when I started bringing technology into my classroom and really using it to help teach my students, I didn't know anything. And there was so much stuff out there that was so intimidating. So today, I'm going to show you a lot of really easy entry points where you can just kind of get started. And if you really want to be successful at this and you don't want to be overwhelmed, just pick 1 or 2 of them and just have fun with it. As you're having fun, you'll start to realize those educational benefits, and the kids will probably teach you more than you ever thought you could learn. Okay. All right, so first, before we get into the, actually using technology, I like to go over the ITSE standards. If you're not familiar with those, it's really did help me in understanding how I could integrate technology into my lessons and standards and skills and really take my students further. So as an educator, there are standards that kind of help us outline what is our role when we're using technology to teach. And I'm not going to sit and read these pages for you. You'll have a copy of it. But so as an educator, we're learners all the time. We're leaders, and that's really what we are. We're leaders to our peers. We're leaders to our students. We're citizens. And so we have to contribute to our students' responsibility when they're using anything that takes them into the digital world. We're collaborators. We collaborate with our colleagues. We collaborate with our students. We're designers, facilitators, and analysts. The nice thing about technology is it does give us a lot of data for us to analyze how our students are doing. I'm going to show you a quick video. This is the standards when you look at it from the point of view of a student. What does it mean to be an empowered learner or a digital citizen or a knowledge constructor? So we'll watch this real quick. And you know what, I'm not sure if when I shared my screen, I'm going to stop and share again because I don't think I selected for it to share the audio. There we go. Okay, so before we go on to the Tpack model, I just wanted to say, ask yourself, how does that video make you feel? Because when I watched it for the first time, that's what I want my students. That's exactly the way those students were engaged and actively working, and you didn't see a teacher hovering over them, telling them what to do next and what to do again. And that's what I wanted for my students. I wanted them to take ownership of their education and to have the tools to be able to do that in an engaging way. Whether we like it or not, they live in a world where they're surrounded by technology. So I could, not use technology because they use it so much when they're not in my classroom, or I could teach them how to use it in a productive manner that will help them be 21st century students. The Tpack model is a way that you can bring all of those things together because that's a lot of information. And I'm not going to go here. There's a link here that you can go onto if you'd like to get more about it. But you can see here that it takes the content and it connects it with our pedagogy and the technology. And so there are times where we're just teaching content and we're not really using our pedagogy or we're not using the technology. And so what we want to do is we want to get to the sweet spot. So the sweet spot you can see here, and a little bit different infographic, is right here in this middle. And we call it the Tpack. And basically it's where you bring all of those different elements together. This is the use of pedagogical techniques that use technologies in constructive ways to teach content, knowledge of what makes concepts difficult or easy to learn, and how technology can help redress some of the problems that students must face. So it kind of brings all those together. So you're using the technology, you're using your pedagogy, you're using those teaching strategies that you know, that you've used for years, and the content that the books. So we talk about this with our leaders, our administrators all the time, and we can't just stick to that book and follow every word that it says. We have to use our pedagogy, right? We have to use those strategies and those differentiations that those students need to help them reach those standards and those concepts and skills. So the Samar model, and I put this on here as a reference for you because I don't know what kind of learner you are, but I need to see an example. What does that look like in the real world? And so we have substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. So the one thing that's most important is you're not going to be in any one of these at all times. The goal is to get into the modification and the redefinition when you're using technology, but you're not always going to be there. So for example, if I'm using technology and I'm just doing substitution, I could use Google Earth to locate a place on the map instead of an actual paper map, or I can use Google Docs to type up a presentation versus having them use a pen and piece of paper. With augmentation, the teacher instructs students to use Google Earth to measure the distance between two places in the map instead of using the calipers and the, getting out your rulers and then using the model to find the distance. And if you go to modification, then the class would use Google Earth layers to research locations on the map. So you just kind of keep taking a little bit further with what you can do because you have the technology. And you've probably seen this or probably done this quite a few times this year, just in an effort to meet the students' needs. So if you, to redefine your teaching, you would use Google Earth to create a narrated guided tour of a location. And so one of the things that we did with my classroom, with my students, in our social studies unit, we cover the explorers coming over to the North America. And so what I have my students do is they go to Google Earth and they identify where their explorer leaves and they pin where their explorer is going, and they're all working in the same map, and they leave a post about the information, why they came, what motivated them, what they found, where they went next. And so it was very engaging, and it gave them a way to pull all that information into one place and see it for themselves. Here's another image of when you're redefining with just using Google Apps. There are a lot of different apps out there, but if you're just gonna start with Google, in substitution, you can collect data using forms instead of paper and pencil. You can create slideshows instead of making a poster. If you wanna move over to augment, you can use Google Forms to create a quiz. If you're modifying, you create a hyperdoc syllabus complete with links to the outside sources. And a lot of us did that this year in order for our students to have access to the content and to the curriculum. We would hyperdoc that for them. Or if in redefinition, you can use a Google form to create a choose your own path adventure for students. So they have a little bit of say-so and ownership in their learning. All right, to the good stuff. So one of my favorite things to do in my classroom is green screen. There's lots of grants out there. So if I were you today, I would write up a grant and try to get a green screen or a Padcaster set for your classroom. You can do it with an iPad. A lot of the Chromebooks can do it as well. It's a little difficult with the Chromebook if you're videoing other people. And if your Chromebook doesn't have the camera on the opposite side. There are 3 different programs that I like to use. Do Ink is very easy to use. It's user-friendly. The students catch on really quickly. It's just very self-explanatory. It's not very expensive. It does have a free version. It's a little bit limited, but even the full version is not that expensive. WeVideo is another one that's really great to use on the Chromebooks. The free version works. You have all access to everything except for your video will have a watermark on it that says WeVideo. And then iMovie is another great one. It's a little bit trickier, but it not only gives you access to the video, but you also have the auditing controls. And so I'm going to show you a couple examples of how that can be used with ELA. So creating a film. So what I did with my students a couple of years ago, I was really frustrated because in 5th grade, we teach theme a lot. And it didn't matter how many times we taught it, how many different stories we used to teach it. They just didn't seem to get it, that they couldn't understand or separate main idea and theme. They kept trying to relate the theme back to what was happening in the story in the sense of the characters and how they felt, which is somewhat true. But anyway, so what I decided to do, and I did it on a whim. I was like, you know what? I'm going to give you a theme. And so I gave them all themes, and I'm going to give you a 5th grade theme, not just a word, but a phrase. And then you're going to get together with 5 of your friends, and you're going to create a narrative skit. During our writing time at the time, I was teaching narrative writing, and so it was perfect. I could bring in multiple standards, and that's what makes this so doable. I'm not just doing this during my reading time. I was able to bring in so many standards that the time that I used doing this project taught them so much more than I could have separately. So they had to create a narrative skit. They had to write it themselves. So they had to identify the characters that were going to be in the skit. They had to identify the setting, the plot, the character traits. They had to identify how the characters would look to, with those context clues to show the characters' traits. And then they had to act it out in front of the green screen. And we selected someone in each group that wasn't in a group that was acting to be the producer and to film it. Once the kids, acted out their skit, they had to identify an image that matches the setting of the story. And sometimes it changed, so they had to change it multiply, and they could put that in their green screen. To go a little bit further, to bring in the context clues and how we use those clues to help us to break apart those things we don't quite understand. Usually it's vocabulary words, but there's other things that applies to. I had the kids create their own memes. And so they had to create an image or find an image, basically what they did. And then they had to write some kind of clues in there without saying that would, for the beginning of their skit, that would explain or help the reader to understand where they were going. And then the last meme told us what their theme was. And so what we did after everybody recorded theirs and got them all edited and done, which didn't take longer than a week to do the whole process, the students, we played them. And so none of the students knew what each other's theme was. They were so engaged in what they were doing, they didn't even pay attention to what anyone else was doing. And it was really fun to play each other's skit and have them, try to identify what is the theme of the skit, what lesson are you learning? That group of kids will probably never forget what a theme is. It was so impactful, but the most meaningful part of all of that was the young man in my classroom who I could not get to participate ever. He was so resistant to anything that was learning. He was the class clown. He wasn't rude or disrespectful, and he really wasn't disruptive. He just wouldn't engage in the learning process until we did this project. He was the ringleader for this project. He had everybody on task, and he was so engaged, and he was such a vital part of them being able to successfully create this video. And what I saw and realized in that is, I don't think he realized what he was doing was educational. I think that it was such a safe place for him to be able to just be himself and use his knowledge, that he was able to really, for the first time, show me who he was and what he was capable of. So I'll show you that skit real quick.
4 hours. Miss McCoy has to go to a meeting, but the babysitter is late.
Miss Babysitter, she's so late. I can't count her. She's always late.
The babysitter suddenly arrives.
Sorry I'm late. I lost track of time shopping. Look at these new shoes. Aren't they adorable? That's our babysitter. She's so cool. Bye, girls. Behave. I mean it. Bye, Mom. Bye, Mom. Don't worry. I'm sure it'll be fine. Oh, yeah. I almost forgot. No candy or soda before bed. Okay.
Miss McCoy walks out the door. Meanwhile, the twins decide to see how fun their babysitter truly is.
Now where's the candy? On top of the fridge.
Carly grabs the king-size Kit Kat off the fridge and gives it to the twins.
Yummy! It's mine. It's mine. No, it's mine. Give me the candy bar. I'm older. Yeah, you're too old for candy. What are you doing?
Carly took the candy bar and went to the couch to play on her phone.
Sure, do whatever you want. Just don't bother me. Whatever we want. Yay!
Twins ran into the mom's room and turned on the radio. They also started to jump on the bed.
is all distracted. Follow me, follow me. It's okay. Good. Turn it up.
Mom starts jumping on the bed along with the twins just as Mom walks through the bedroom door. The twins know what's going to happen, so they stop jumping.
What is going on in here?
Crash Mom's favorite vase breaks.
It was her. You were 5. You were 5. I remember hiding in there. You clearly not responsible apple.
So the one little girl on the left-hand side with the ponytail was the shyest, quietest little girl. She was so terrified of what she knew. And so to even get her to speak loud enough to be recorded was such a success for her. And this one, it looked like they didn't have the meme in there, but the theme for that one was responsibility is, people's trust is earned, or something. It had something to do with responsibility, but the kids had a really great time. And I have several others of the kids doing those, but they had a great time and they learned so much. But you can see on their faces that they were having the time of their life. And the young man who was being the narrator, he was my young man who he just was not invested in education. I don't think he saw himself as someone who was smart, and education was not for him. And then when he got, after doing this, it changed everything for him in the class. He started participating more, taking a more leadership role, trusting himself enough to be able to put himself out there. There are so many other amazing things that you can do with the green screen, from social studies to science. We have another one on here where the kids were weathermen. And so in the science unit for 4th grade, they learn all about weather and the different, aspects of weather. And so as in an effort to bring science and integrate that with their writing standards and their reading standards, we had a teacher at Almond Creek had the kids create.
All right, folks,
weathermen.
looks like there's been some shocking news.
Yeah, it seems like there has been an ice storm.
This ice storm looks like it's been rated a 7.2.
Well, our ice storm just started with a simple freezing rain.
You might want to close off unneeded rooms and stay inside at all parts of the day.
Wow, I forgot. This ice storm may be stronger than carbon monoxide poisoning.
We're planning on several inches of ice.
Goodbye, see you next time.
Thanks for watching.
So you can see there, and I apologize, that was a 3rd grade class. So you can see that the quality and their expertise at being videoed is not quite the same as they're at 5th grade, but you can only imagine how well they would do if that at each grade level integrated this into their classroom as a way for them to present what they know. Another one that we used, and I'm not going to show it today for lack of time, but the veterans performance, we did that one using the iMovie. And what was really cool about this one is we do a veterans performance for our community every year, but we couldn't this year because of being in the hybrid model. So what we did was we had the students sing on Zoom and we recorded it. And then I took the kids one at a time over a couple weeks, and we had them make a statement, a character trait, like what is a character trait that they see in a veteran? And then we brought that together into using the green screen, we brought it together and made this amazing video that we were not only able to send to the participants in our community that usually come to see us, but every one of our students was able to share that with family members that were veterans that didn't live in that state. So this will be something that we will continue every year. It probably won't take the place of having our veterans come and see us once we're able to do that again. It'll be in addition to that because it was just such a wonderful thing. So many of the family members contacted us thanking us for how impactful it was for them. But what was most important is the way that it made our students feel from a community perspective and what they were able to give back. They were so proud of themselves. Gamification is the funnest. I love gamification. So, and if you're a mom, you rolled your eyes when you heard that because that's all we need is our kids playing another game. And I would have agreed with you before I learned about gamification and explored it. Some of the two that I use, this is my favorite one, it's e-reading games. And they have games on there for context clues, genre, point of view, poetry, grammar, and figurative language. And so I learned about this for the first time last year. And the one that I think we were doing was point of view. And what's really great about it, it's an old battleship game. It's, you know, the little spaceship that shoots the aliens, and the kids love it. They play it with their mouse and their arrow keys. But what's really neat about it is when they get hit or whatever happens, or if they're climbing the context clues and they fall, then they're prompted with a passage that they have to read and identify what point of view that passage is in. And regardless of whether they're right or wrong, it tells them correct and why they're correct, or wrong and why they're wrong. As they continue to play, there's that encouragement to do their best, because after getting the answer, not dying, but getting the answer wrong the second time, it starts them over back at the beginning, and it gives them a percentage of their accuracy as they played. And so I was able to use that as a formative assessment. My students this is what they would do. They would go home and they're like, I got to the end and I'm 99% successful at identifying point of view. And it takes them all the way, it progresses throughout the game to get harder and harder. So it starts off, you know, with first person, second person, third person. And then it, as they get better and better at that, it takes them into the different types of third person. And it really does a great job at extending what they know, but it also gives them, or it provides me that data with how well they're doing with it. Last year when I used this in the classroom, I was being observed by our assistant superintendent, which was very stressful because he wanted to see what that meant, what gamification looked like in a classroom. And one of my little students was in our tier 2 program, and he was an amazing young man, but he was really hard to motivate to learn. And this for him was amazing. And he was the one that our assistant superintendent went to ask, so what are you doing? And he explained everything in detail. Well, I'm doing this so I can learn how, you know, to identify the point of view, and, you know, this one's this because of this. And he just was getting so much out of this, and he was so engaged. It was just a great way. And this isn't something that I use on a daily basis, but it's definitely something fun. It's a fun way to engage them and really see what they're learning. It provides just enough motivation that they take it very serious, and they learn from it because they want to progress, which is kind of what games do for us, right? We learn how to get better because we want to win. And so this is a great one. It's free. It's very easy to sign up. If you have Google Classroom, I just copy the link and put it in their Google Classroom, and they click on it, it takes them right there. They don't have to sign into an account. Students take a screenshot and send me when they, at the end of the day, they get to work to do their best. And so their best percentage, they'll send me a screenshot of it, and that will be their grade for that participation for the day. But they really enjoy this. It's a lot of fun. The games are very, very simple, very easy games. They're not hard or frustrating to actually play, and I think that the way that it's set up for the content, it's very easy. It starts out very low entry point, and it kind of builds kind of similar to like the map test. The more and more they get it right, the further they go. The second gamification one is called Legends of Learning. And there are 2 different versions to this. One is free and one is a paid version. The free version will give you everything that you need if you use this just occasionally. It is actually I enjoy this quite a bit, especially when I'm preparing my students for tests. You can see that as a teacher, I clicked on sign in with Google, because then I could sign in with my teaching credentials. And you can see at the top, it's got the district and school and my teacher. And then you can see here, it breaks down all of the information. And so you can assign games to them by the standard. It goes elementary school science, elementary math, middle school science, middle school math, and then STEM and CTE classes. And so you assign a task or a game to the students, and that you can do it live, or they can do it on their own time. If they do it live, then I can watch as they're playing the game to see not only how well they're doing, but what standards they're struggling with. I can see an overview of every student. It gives me a percentage. You can see off to the right-hand side here on my screen. It breaks it down per standard, based off of whatever it was. I believe this looks like it was a math one, but it breaks it down to the standard, how well their students are doing, who's struggling, who needs help. And this is a great way for me. It's kind of a reward for the kids, but it's a good way for me to kind of get an idea, especially when we're finishing a unit, how well they were able to take it, because this is a little challenging. The Legends of Learning, I started using this with my high cap students because it is challenging. It's not your basic 2 plus 2. It's word problems, and it gets a little bit more difficult. They really have to think and analyze what they're doing in order to play this game. So it is a little challenging for some of the students. You will find that some of the games are more challenging than what your students can do. And in which case I'm like, sorry guys, we'll do another one. I don't want to break the kids. I want them to enjoy it and to be engaged. But for the most part, they really enjoy playing this. The free version will give you just about everything. I think that the only thing it limits you is the number of games that you can do in a year. And I don't recall how much the paid version is, but I don't use this enough in order to justify paying for it. Flipgrid is another one of my very favorite ones. It's free. There are so many cool things, probably more so now. I haven't really invested into looking into the new things that they've created, but so I'm sure there's so much more out there than what I have on here. You can sign in with Google. You can assign lessons directly to their Google Classroom, so it takes out them having to have a separate password and username. They just click on it, takes them right to your classroom. With ELA, I use it for vocabulary. We use it to do book reviews. I'll use it to post videos explaining directions. I'll have the students, when they edit their papers, I have the students create a Flipgrid video to tell me, what they saw in their paper that needed correction and what their focus, what was their goal for that paper, and if they felt they achieved it. You can partner with teachers at other schools. That's probably one of my favorite. So we did that. I think it was last year. We partnered with a teacher, a classroom in Georgia. And so the content standards that we teach in Washington State are not that different from Georgia. And it was a lot of fun for our students to compare what they were learning with their other school. Super engaging. Every day, do we get any videos from our friends? And it really helped to expand their knowledge on topics by having that engagement with these students that are on the other side of the US. You can also invite guest speakers through Flipgrid. Like I said, there's a couple other things, but one of my favorite things to do is every Monday for our vocabulary words, because the kids get tired, and we played vocabulary games with dice and tic-tac-toe vocabulary and roll a word. We did all kinds of things, draw pictures, and it just gets, after 180 days, it gets a little repetitive. And so I decided every Monday we do our vocabulary words for the week, and I had the students come in and assign 2 students a vocabulary word. And obviously I haven't been able to do it this year because of COVID, but the students were required to create a video or a cartoon skit that they would put in front of the camera that would teach the meaning of their vocabulary word. On their video, they had to do a hashtag synonym, hashtag antonym, and then hashtag whatever part of speech it was. And then same thing with the green screen skit. We would play the video after everyone was done, and they had a set period of time. I set a timer. Okay, guys, for one word, it should only take you 5 minutes tops. Obviously, the first time around takes a little longer because you have to help them through the process. But after that, you have one word, you have a dictionary, you've got a Chromebook, shouldn't take you that long. And they get really efficient at it. So it doesn't take a lot of time. The more and more that they do this, the more the improvement in their ability to really come up with good videos or really understand the meaning of the words. But when we watch these videos, every word that the students think of for each video, we write it on the board. And what's really cool, at the end, we usually identify that not only did someone identify the word, but all the other words that were identified were synonyms of that word. And so it's really empowering for them. It really gives them that in-depth understanding of that vocabulary word before we begin the story. So I have let's see.
Yeah!
Stop. Stop.
So you can tell that sometimes when I was doing these, I wouldn't make the kids, or I would ask them, when you're going to record, just holler record and everybody should be quiet. Not all students did that. I think that they were so engaged in what they were doing, they didn't hear the background noise. But so I'm not going to show you too much more for time, but you can see here, this one, you've got hashtag, it's a verb, inspect, report. I think that, I don't remember what the word was for this one, but the kids get pretty creative. The one prior to this, unique. So what they did was they would pause it and then they draw the lines and get her back into place. And so you could see and so that's things that they came up with on their own to really get creative with identifying, really teaching us what those words meant. Anyways, the best part about it is, and the most important part is that the kids came to school excited every Monday. They couldn't wait. They couldn't wait to find out what their word was. They couldn't, they wanted to outdo each other with, they couldn't wait. And in fifth grade, we find a lot of our words have multiple meanings. And so that put a lot of pressure on the kids, because then they had to go into the story and how is it being used in our story? So we have to make sure the video you create matches the meaning for which we're using it. And it was a lot of fun, a great way to teach the students how to investigate the vocabulary and really communicate what it means and understand that word and how it's used. Google Classroom is one of my favorites. I've been using it for the last 3 years, and so it wasn't very difficult for me this past year, and I was glad that I was in a position to be able to help some of my peers. I hope that this next year, when things tend to go back to normal, that we don't lose the momentum that we've gained with integrating technology, because it's so meaningful for the kids. So the nice thing about Google Classroom, I'm sure a lot of you are using that or something similar, is you can create assignments, you can post resources and materials for the kids. Google Docs is phenomenal. If you haven't done so already, it's an amazing way to conference with your students in real time. When I give a writing assignment, I used to pull a student up and we would talk, and I still do that. But if it's the intro and they're just working, I can sit at my desk and they get so excited, because when Ms. Pescasio's pink cursor jumps into their screen and starts talking to them, they think that that's amazing. Like, wait a minute, you're on my screen. And so what I can do for my desk is I can go in and out of each student's, because I can see an overview of all of my students, and you can tell the progress they're making based off of the length of their paragraph. And so I can go into each one of those in a 15-minute period. I can communicate with all 20 of my students and give them a goal for what they've already done, or give them a reminder of something they're not focusing on. And for me, it's been a really effective way, especially not having my students in the classroom all the time. I can conference with them. But I think the part that they like the most about it is to be able to conference with each other. So now that when we're peer editing, they share their document with a classmate, and it leaves the comments and stuff that I can see when they turn into me. So I know who did the work in that document. When I assigned, so you can see on the left-hand side, we were doing a report on the explorers, and each group of students was assigned a different explorer. And there were requirements for what they had to create, a brochure, as if you were the passenger and you had to choose which cruise you were going on. So they had to create brochures for their explorers, where they were going, the resources they use, why they were going there, what ship they would be on. It was a lot of fun for the kids. But what was really cool for me as the teacher is, when you have more than one student working in a document like that, it records who's working in there and what part of that document they are responsible for and how much effort they've put into the work. And so that's eliminated a lot of the kids getting frustrated because they're doing all the work, or so-and-so's not helping. And I can see everything that they've done, and I can go in there and conference with them. So that's been a lot of fun. Google Forms is amazing. It's great for breakout rooms, quizzes, choose your own path. If you haven't done that yet, it's a lot of fun. You can create all kinds of ways in there in the Google Forms for the kids to really engage. We do the breakout rooms with a lot of our topics. At the end of every unit, we'll do a breakout room where we review the strategies and skills that we've learned in our reading unit. And the students will have different tasks that they have to do and codes they have to break. And that encouragement, that desire to be the first group done to break out of the room, that's pretty empowering, and it makes them focus and really take their time and use those skills that they've learned over that 5 weeks and really put them into play. And so it's just a great way to entice them to use their knowledge. It's fun, and nothing bad's going to happen if you're not the first one to break out of the room. Google Slides is an awesome way for them to present their work, their projects. Using a Google Slide is just a modification. It's not, you're just replacing, using a poster with Google Slide. But what you do with that, or what the kids are able to do with that when they present, is they incorporate videos, and they can hyperlink resources and projects, and they bring in a lot of different things that they don't have access to with paper and pencil. They work collaboratively, which has been great. My kids have worked in groups the entire year. When they're at home, they jump on their Google slide or their Google Doc and they work together. They can see each other's writing. They've really enjoyed that. They've done a lot of really great things. And for 5th grade, my favorite part about Google Docs is the originality reports. We hear it from the middle school teachers all the time that the students, they don't know how to cite properly or, writing in their own words. And it's really hard, right? Because I can usually tell when a 5th grade student has copied an entire article from a website, but they're not all that, clear. And so what this takes the guesswork out of for them and for me. And the one thing that I had to shift my mindset was, it's not that they're just being lazy, it's they don't know what they don't know. And so when they run a report and they're like, wait, I've got 70% plagiarized, what part of it was plagiarized? It helps them to learn. And we have conversations about this when they run them. Like, how can you rewrite that in your own words? And if you feel like it's written in a way that can't be restated, then how do we properly cite that? And so I feel like I'm better preparing my students for success in middle school by using the originality reports and giving them the opportunity to learn from what they're doing. And as the year goes on, you can see they get really proud of themselves. You wouldn't think so, but any kind of competition and they're in. Because now it's, who can get the lowest originality report back percentage. And so they're really putting a lot of effort into rewriting the words in their own words versus plagiarizing, because they're competing with each other to get the lowest percentage on their citations. So, which is fine with me, whatever works. Pixar is such an amazing one. If you haven't used that in your classroom, it's so cute. It's where I got the idea to do the skit, the short skit for the theme. I had found these and we were using them. It's just really quick because they're super short videos. They're like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And, because we usually have a main anchor text that we use to teach the theme, and it's long and it takes the whole week. And, you're focusing on a lot of things, not just the theme. Whereas a Pixar film, it's very short and the details very limited. So you can, when you're identifying the theme for that, it doesn't take that long, and you can do multiple ones and then analyze, well, what context clues or what led you to believe that that's the lesson that they learned, and is there more than one theme? And so I'll play it real quick. I won't spend too much time on that one, but okay, so I won't continue playing that because it's quite a long video, it's 3 minutes. But you can see, one, Pixar movies are super cute. And so they're engaged, they get the kids' attention almost immediately. 2, they're all Disney movies, all Pixar movies have a moral or a lesson that the basis of the writing is based off of what you want your students to learn. And so for my students, it's a lot of fun, but there's a lot of them out there, and you can just Google, Pixar short films for theme, setting, character traits, compare and contrast, all of those. I'm sorry, hold on one second. So anyways, it's a great way for you to bring in more ways to outside of that curriculum to help them to learn those different standards that we have to teach in reading at the different grade levels. And it's engaging and it's fun. And so, and this is where I got the idea. I was like, well, the kids should create their own video like that. And what better way to learn how to do it than to have to be the creator. Screencastify is another great one. For a teacher, so in our district, and I can't remember his name, such a sweet guy. I know that I was talking with the curriculum department, and we have a contract with Screencastify, and they were looking at the usage to see about renewing it for next year. And there's an older guy who was really terrified about technology and how to use it. And he's such an amazing personality because he just decided, you know what, it's the world that I live in, so I'm just going to jump in and I'm just going to do it. And so shockingly, he has created 950 some videos, and this was like several months ago, using Screencastify. And so we contacted him to say, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I give my kids feedback on every one of their papers. I video myself giving them feedback. And so he's having that one-on-one interaction with those students in a meaningful way that was it was amazing. What he was doing for his students was so I don't even do that in the classroom in a normal year, or I try, but he was, and he said, it doesn't take long at all. They're very short and very precise. I read their paper and then I record myself giving them some feedback on how to edit it or make it better, or, to justify the points that I gave them. So they do offer a free educator version of Screencastify. And you can add it as a Google extension. With the free version, you get to record up to 5 minutes per video, which is usually sufficient. You can edit and trim the videos. It auto saves it to your Google Drive, and then you can add the videos to your slides. So in ELA, what I use it with is to narrate my Google Slides. So a lot of times the students will create presentations and then I'll have them use Screencastify to narrate it. Especially this year with them not being able to be in the classroom. And I can use Screencastify to explain to the students how to do something, but they can also use Screencastify to explain to me how they did something. And so with their math, about 2 months ago, I had them create Screencastify videos explaining to me how they would solve a problem. And so it was a really great way for me to identify how they were doing, where their misunderstandings were without having them in the classroom. They were only here 2 days a week. It was very difficult to really teach what you needed to teach, but also assess how they were doing with it and where their holes were, because you just didn't have them very long. And so this helped me to overcome that. They love to record themselves, and so they just thought it was the greatest thing. I've allowed students who are too shy to stand up in front of the classroom and give a speech or performance when it's time to present to record themselves giving their presentation, and we'll play it from the class, and then they'll stand off to the side and be available for questions, which isn't a whole lot different from them standing up there on their own, but it's just enough security for them to be a part of the process still, to stand there and answer questions, but not to feel so overwhelmed that they can't be successful at that. And then they give each other peer-to-peer feedback. So there's times where I'll use Screencastify. Okay, you're gonna edit so-and-so's paper, and I grade them on their editing, so that it can't just be, you can't tell them it's a great paper and not give them any advice. And they have to record their editing and send it to both myself and the student that they were editing it. So it's a lot of fun. The kids really get into it. And the first time you do that, you won't feel that it's a success. You'll look at some of the videos and think that's not what I intended, but you'll start to notice that the more they start to really use the rubric to critique their peers, the more that they'll all kind of get more invested into looking really deeply, which it ultimately increases their ability to write and to watch out for those things. But so don't get discouraged if you try this and it doesn't feel as successful as you wanted. Novel effect is another great one, especially if you teach the younger grades. I use it in 5th grade and they love it. We don't do it all the time. It's usually something fun, especially on holidays, but it's an app that you can put on any one of your devices, and it plays the sound effects from a lot of stories. It's free for educators. There's a lot of books that are available with this, and so what they've done is, what makes a book available, so you can recommend a book if there's one that you can't find you'd really like. But what they do is they go through the book and they find sound effects to kind of go with it to make it feel more alive. And so you read the book to your class, but you play this app in the background. And what it does is it brings in sounds, and there's a quick. So I won't play much more of it. It's very cute. You wouldn't think, obviously with the younger kids, this is a big hit. If you're reading a book, Where the Wild Things Grow, that's such a great one. It's just engaging. It makes it more real. It brings that fantasy to life and it captures their attention, but it does it with the 5th graders as well. They just think that it's awesome to hear those noises, and you kind of see them look around, almost like we teach as a strategy and a skill to visualize when you read. And I really do believe that having this app kind of helps facilitate that ability, because you can watch their faces as you're reading it and you hear the sound, and you can see them looking around and in awe. It's like they're there. They're a part of the book. They're experiencing that visualization. They're feeling what that character is going through. They hear the sounds, and it's just a great way to help reinforce those standards that we're trying to get them to use to increase their comprehension. EdPuzzle is my all-time favorite. It's been a lifesaver this year, especially if you have students who don't do their work or they tell their parents that they did their work, but they didn't do anything. It's free. There is a paid version. It's not that much. I did this year. It's free to any school that uses Google. So if your school uses Google, you have a free full account. You log into it with Google with your school address. You can link it to Google Classroom, so I can assign a video directly to my students' classrooms. I get data from the quizzes and their written responses. I can see the students. I can see who watched the videos, how much of the video watched, how much time was spent. The videos, it was created as a way to take an informational video and break it down into, so they could kind of dissect it a little bit. Instead of being all that information at once, the videos will stop at certain points so that you can kind of, comprehend what you've just learned. And oftentimes it'll be a multiple choice question or an open-ended response, and it'll ask the students to kind of break down what they've just learned. And then once they've answered that, it'll continue on with the next part of the video. What's really amazing with that is I had a mom whose daughter wasn't doing well in math. And I was like, well, she's like, well, she's doing her assignments. I don't understand. It's like, well, she's taking a video that's 10 minutes long and has 5 questions, and she's completing it in 10 minutes and 2 seconds. That means she's spending 2 seconds answering the math questions. She's not, and the nice thing about it is when the students are answering the question, if they don't understand it, they can click, there's a button to click, and they'll rewatch the part of the video, the instructional part that they just watched. So you can create videos of yourself teaching and then put those questions in there, or you can use videos that have already been created. And if you're in the Kennewick School District, the Journeys curriculum, there's many amazing teachers that have already created videos for every one of those, for every one of the Journeys chapters and all of the grade levels. And so if you've got a student that's remote only, it's a way for them to basically get that contact like they would have with you asking questions. So the videos play, the teacher reads the video and it breaks it down and asks those questions that are important for them to, learn those skills and strategies. The nice thing is that a lot of it's already done for you. All you have to do is create an account and assign it to your Google Classroom. But like I said, it is a great way to make sure students are actually watching it. So what I've started doing this year is I use this for my homework. That way I don't have to worry about things being brought back to class. I can see if they've actually completed the assignment. I can see how much effort, and I get that data back on how well they did. And they get instant data on how well they did. So their parents can see that as well. Quizzes is another great one. Quizzes is also, they have this designed for all of the Journeys curriculum. So they have comprehension, vocabulary, spelling. You can assign it directly through Google. It is free. It's aligned with most of the curriculums that are out there. You can find quizzes that have already been created for it. And once they've taken a test, you can see the data, it breaks it down. So this was one that we did last year. And you can see it gives you my students how well they did, their accuracy, their score. I can email that to the parents if I want to give the parents that. They can, what I really like about quizzes is they have multiple attempts. So they can take it until they've passed it, and so you can give a quiz live in the classroom if they have one-on-one devices, or that you can have them do the quiz at home or on their own time. It tells you an overall how well the whole class did, and it is aligned with standards. And so it's another one that helps you get that data that you need. The students, I don't know that it makes it more fun. They seem to like it more because it's on the computer. I'm not as big of a fan with this one with math as I am with some of the other ones out there because I don't really get to see their work. But it has been a great way to assess students with them not being in the classroom, being able to return things to me. Other ones that you could use are Kahoot, Vocabulary Jams, and Quizlet. Kahoot is a great one. My kids love Kahoot and Quizlet. So Quizlet Live, what it does is you create a whatever you're doing. Let's say you're doing vocabulary, and so the kids all sign in. You put it on your screen, a code. They sign in with the code. It puts them in random groups. Once you activate the quiz, it assigns them to these groups. And I haven't been able to use it this year because of COVID, but what they have to do is they have to go find their group. And what I really like about Quizlet is they're not allowed, they can't just have one person answer all the questions because among their 4 devices, they don't all have all the same answers. And so they have to work together as a unit to answer those questions. And it's a race. It's like the Amazing Race. Who can get to the finish line first? And so my kids really enjoy doing that. They ask all the time. We use it a lot to when we're studying, we're preparing for a test, we're reviewing one of our standards. Kahoot is another one that's a lot of fun. The kids like to compete against each other to see, because in that one, it's not just if you get it right, it registers how quickly you answer it. And so they're very focused, they're very on task. It's a great way to end the day. I use it with my kids on whatever standard we were teaching that week. One day of the week, I will do a Kahoot on it just to kind of review. There's some really great ones already created out there, or you can create your own. Vocabulary jams is another one that I like to use, especially as we're starting to prepare for the SBAC or the MAP testing. I'll pull out the 5th grade vocabulary words and we'll do a vocabulary jam. The nice thing about this one is I do it with the entire 5th grade team. We don't have to be in the same room in order to do it. You just need the code. And so we compete against the other classes. And the kids just answer questions, but all of these are free, very easy to use. There's not a lot of username or passwords because you project that code for them. So it makes it a little less stressful for the parents and the students to try to remember all of that. Vocabulary jams can be assigned directly to Google Classroom, so can Kahoot and Quizlet, which makes it something that we were able to do during hybrid. I could, my kids at home could interact with my kids in the classroom and we could all take a quiz together. Or it really wasn't a quiz, it was more just a fun review of the information. And Storyboard that. This one is another great one. It's a free resource. It does have a paid version, but we have never needed to do that. And so this one is it's a storyboard that talks about the Samar model, the substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. So the free basic version will give you 6 of these little blocks. You log in with your Google account. This is one that you would have to give them the web address. You can turn your comics into a slide, a GIF, or a PowerPoint. It does have the watermark on it, but that's how my students turn their assignments into me. They'll go to save it as a PDF, and it will save it without the watermark, and then they'll submit it to me as an assignment. But I've used this to summarize a story, to break down the story elements. So if story elements is the focus of the week, sometimes I'll use this and I have them create a box for each story element. And so they have, the setting, the characters, and then the plot. And so there's, problem solution, dialogue, character traits. There's so many different ways, but all those little people that you see there are pretty amazing. We have about 2 minutes left. I won't take you there. It's really great. So you can change the expressions on their face. If we're doing character traits, that's really big. You can change the pose, the way they're standing, the way they look at you. You can add just about from galactic space to dinosaurs to dragons and castles. There's so many different settings that you can bring in there. So the kids really enjoy it. When I assign them, a narrative, we're going to do a narrative skit real quick, and they really enjoy it. It gives them, a lot of that stuff's already done for them. It's very easy to use. Oh, and if we had time, I was going to have you create your own, but we don't. And that is all that I have for today. Is there anybody that had a question or?
I don't see anything in the chat so far, Bambi. You did an amazing job. Thank you.
I was always afraid I'm going to run out of time, and there's so many amazing things that you can do with technology, and I know that probably sounded very overwhelming. But everything that's on there today is very easy to do. You don't really have, you just turn it on, give it to the kids. You'll start to get ideas to take it a little bit further, but none of it's hard to set up or learn.
I've got page after page of new stuff I want to try.
Yes, and that's just it. That's why I like to show examples, because when you see other people, oh, I could do that.
Or I would be willing to try that.
Yes. Oh, you can do it. You can do it. It's crazy because I didn't think I could do any of this. The kids, they're the one like, well, can we do this? I'm like, well, I don't see why not. Let's try it. And they're the ones that will really take it. And just watching them, it's almost like I'm not a teacher anymore. I'm facilitating, and now they've taken ownership of their learning.
Right. So there is a question in the chat. Lots of thank you. Great idea. So many different options. One of these says, do you think some of these will work with middle school or high school?
I do. I think that they're still kids and they want to be creative and they want to be, I think probably get better, higher level work. But this just gives them a fun way to express it. And I know that a friend of mine, she teaches at Chinook. She uses she does podcasting for her book reviews. And so there's, in the green screen. And so for career day, they had to dress up as their person and create a presentation and so there are so many different ways that you can use these that it's just engaging and it's fun. And the kids really enjoy seeing each other. And the first time you do it, do not let that discourage you. Do not stop after the first time, at least do it twice, because the first time feels overwhelming because you don't know what you don't know. There's so many questions and you'll look at it and say, oh, it could have been better. And it will be, because once they see it, once they start to get those ideas like you did today, the next time you do it, it's phenomenal. Like they bring so much to the table, which is, I think for me, that's what I enjoy the most, is watching them. Like I've got them and they're the one doing the learning now. And it's not me anymore.
Absolutely. Any suggestions for what you think might work best, or where middle and high school might want to start with everything you've given us today?
With middle school and high school, the green screen is a big one.
Okay.
They really enjoy that one. And a podcasting set isn't that expensive. And I would really look into that, because at this time of the year, your district is probably trying to figure out what to do with their excess federal funds. And so that would get one for the building. And that could be checked out, through the technology room or whatever. We have one at Kennewick School District that you can check out through curriculum. That one in podcasting is a great one for the high school, especially for ELA.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. So we've come to the end of our session. Thank you for all of the amazing ideas today, Bambi. You did an amazing job. We encourage you, everybody out there, to tweet something you heard in your session today or something that may have resonated with you. Remember to use hashtag WATAC 2021 and hashtag WATeachLead. And it's time for lunch. You have a 45-minute break between now and the next session, which you don't want to miss. Take a break, stretch your legs. We'll see you back here at 1. Please be sure to check your online agenda for your webinar link. All right. Thank you, Bambi.
Thank you, guys. I really enjoyed this.
Bye, everybody. Have a great lunch.
Bye.